I am Mark Bosco, the Vice President for Mission and Ministry here at Georgetown University, and I'm here with two of my colleagues, Rabbi Rachel Gardner and Imam Yahya Hendi. Welcome, guys. I really appreciate you taking the time to be with me.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you for having us.
So we do interfaith dialogue. We talk about dialogue accompaniment. We really talk about how we enrich each other by being in front of, with, celebrating each other's traditions. I wanted to, how long have you, Yahya, how long have you been here at Georgetown now, these many years?
I have been at Georgetown for 21 years. Wow. And remember that Georgetown became the first American university to hire a Muslim chaplain.
Wow, that's fantastic. And now, Rabbi, we have a long tradition of having a rabbi here with Rabbi White from like 1968, 69. Yeah. When did you come to Georgetown?
Well, I was the second rabbi here, which I find quite funny because Rabbi White stayed for a very long time, for over 40 years. Right. I came in 2011, so it's been almost 9 years now.
That's great. It's been a real wonderful experience working side by side with you in so many different ways. But tell me a little bit about the Muslim community here, and what were some of the more exciting, wonderful, or funny events that have happened in your time here?
You know, the Muslim community has grown since I came to Georgetown University. We used to pray in a classroom, do our Friday service of 20, 25 people. Now we have a Friday service that brings together about 120 to 130 students. Wow. For Ramadan, we used to have iftar, the break of the fast meal, and about, again, 30, 35 people come. Now the break of the fast iftar in Ramadan, it brings together about 150 to 200, sometimes 250 Muslim students. We do retreats once a semester, and we do weekly lecture. Now at Georgetown, we have a masjid, we have a Muslim, we have a mosque, and therefore Georgetown became, again, a breaking record, the first American university to have a masjid on its borders. Yeah,
that's great. Yeah. What about you, Rabbi Rachel? What about the Jewish community here?
Well, when I first came, I remember we could barely get a minyan, barely the 10 we needed to pray, and now we are filling our beautiful space in the Levy Center with 60 or 70 students every Shabbat from a wide range of Jewish backgrounds, some very engaged in the tradition, some, with more cultural connection and sort of a social communal engagement type of, it's what excites them. There's sort of a full range of students. One of the things, one of my fondest memories was about 4 years ago when a Muslim student turned to a Jewish student and said, hey, we have a Muslim living learning residential life community. Why don't you have a Jewish one? So they came to me, which was amazing, and they asked me the same question. I said, I don't know why. It's a good question. Well, 6 months later, the university opens a tower in Henley with 5 apartments for Jewish living learning community, and I love the way that happened. Yeah. I think that really speaks to the care that we have for each other, the concern that we have for each other, and the way that we and the university gets things done for our community.
That's great.
One of the great things, Father Mark, is that I'm the Muslim chaplain, but the students who come to my office are not all Muslims. Yeah. Catholic, Protestant, Hindu, Jewish, Muslim students. So are Muslims. They go to the rabbi. They come to you. Yeah. So you are the priest of the Muslim students. I'm the imam of the Catholics and the Jews. Yeah.
I cooked for 6 Jewish kids, and I had to kind of make sure that I was being kosher. So I was writing the kids, can I do this? Can I do this? Can I do this? So it was wonderful to have the kids over for an Italian meal.
They probably had all different answers to your question.
But we knew,
managed.
We managed, which was great. They were a lot of fun. One of the ways in which the three of us have obviously really kind of connected and bonded was this experience of taking faculty on a pilgrimage of accompaniment to the Holy Land. And I want to talk about that for the remainder of our time. What was your experience of being together, this community of Georgetown faculty and staff, and in Jerusalem together, in Palestine, in Galilee, all those places?
These weeks later, I'm still trying to unpack that experience because it was so profound. It was so multi-layered. So much interpersonal and personal transformation happened. I've been to the region many times, but never in this way. And I think what Georgetown afforded all of us the opportunity to do is to do this in this way. I would say it's certainly rare, if not unique. So I'm sorry, what was the question though?
No, I mean, just that's great.
It's quite amazing that We work at Georgetown University, and we work together at Georgetown. And the Jewish professor talks about Jerusalem in his own way, on his own. Yeah. But he never gets to hear the Muslim's perspective of Jerusalem. The Catholic or the Protestant talk about Jerusalem in their own way, using their own lens, with their own folks, but never get to hear the Jewish perspective. You know, and on this trip, we were able to do that, where the Jewish professor heard the Muslim perspective, the Catholic perspective. The Muslim was able to hear the Catholic perspective and the Jewish perspective. So hearing one another, listening to one another, for me, is one of the greatest things this trip did.
I have to agree with you. I remember when Rabbi Rachel, you came up to me and said, you know, the Stations of the Cross thing, I've heard about it, but to do it with Georgetown and with faculty, and I also thought it was just wonderful. We had a couple Muslim faculty and staff going. We had at least 6 Jewish faculty and staff, other Christians, having that conversation. And as you said, watching it, I was very sensitive to see like how you were reacting when we were in Palestine. I was very sensitive to how you were reacting when we were, you know, in a obviously a Jewish place. I was kind of reacting to the other faculty, and I was the generosity of spirit we all had, and how the faculty had for us too.
Yes.
I was very, very moved by that. Having these little conversations on the bus or at a meal, or at a mosque, or on the Shabbat.
I think we found a generosity of spirit. We made room for each other's experiences that was really quite beautiful. And you know, I found I walked streets that I've walked many times before, but I saw them completely differently, having each of you by my side and having the group that we were with. And that transformed me. It makes me grow. It stretched me and enriched my whole perspective on the same places that I've been to many times. And I also found, and I will also just say, I found one of the most profound moments, you mentioned the Stations of the Cross, is I felt an intense version of what I feel here on campus all the time, which is when I watch other people in their traditions praying, in the Abrahamic traditions and beyond the Abrahamic traditions, I feel like I'm a container, a supportive container for their experience with that I try to fill with a generosity and love to witness what's happening before me. And in that context, it was multiplied. Yeah. So the depth of my experience of being there for somebody else was something that you can't touch unless you're in such an intense context.
You know, I was very aware as someone who's never been to the Holy Land, knowing that, you know, obviously, Yahya, you were raised there, and you were like the rock star whenever we were in Nablus or in Ramallah. And of course, you having so many friends there and have lived in Jerusalem in that area, for me, it was quite new. And one of the things I was really aware of was how, you know, we talk about sacred spaces being sacred, but this is a contested sacred space. That there was a sense that sacred space is not just a kind of a comfortable place, but it actually is contested. We saw that a lot in our trip. And I wanted to ask you what you thought about that experience of being in these places that, you know, that are contested.
You know, I would always say that the clash of ideas is the sound of freedom. You know, as we clash in our ideas and ideals, trying to describe a specific house of worship, we come to discover the best of who we are and what we need to do together. You know, whether it's in Hebron, what does it mean to be in a place that we both claim? And how can we challenge the best of who we are to come up with the best conflict resolution in action?
Yeah, you know, in an ideal world, common sacred space would be shared sacred space. Mm-hmm. But certainly in the region, common sacred space isn't shared, it's contested. And to really understand our communities, all of our communities, and to really accompany and engage in the most profound and fruitful ways, we need to really understand that reality. And being in that context, I think, showed us that. And it's hard and it's painful. But it also, for me, and I think for others in the group, provided a sense of urgency to bring the best of ourselves to those moments, and to use when we come back here to mine our traditions and our connections for that which we can contribute to helping our communities figure out a better way forward.
Yeah. I do feel that, we mentioned that the three things we wanted to have happen with our faculty and staff to make this a real Georgetown experience was we would complicate our maybe naive notions, especially people like me, our naive notions of what was going on. We would humanize, and so we would only talk to people who could meet us in dialogue and conversation, and we would accompany one another. And I think we did all those three things. And I've been hearing back from some of our faculty too how that kind of cura personalis that we talk about, that we kind of fostered on our trip, they're now trying to take into their classrooms. I'm going to share a couple, but I'm sure you've heard things too. I heard one of our professors who went with us say, I was talking about being in Palestine, and I made sure I said Palestine for the first time, and a Palestinian student came up to him with tears and says, "Thank you for saying that word." And then I heard from another faculty member who said, who is an archaeologist and really a classicist, said, I have to go back now and do a course on the archaeology, the cultural archaeology of Jerusalem, through its Jewish and its Muslim and its Christian ways. And it's kind of made a new course for him in some ways. Have you heard some of the same things from our colleagues?
I've heard people say that they're walking around with a heightened sensitivity and a nuanced understanding of the Muslim experience, of the Jewish experience, of our Israeli students' experience. Nice. And I certainly am feeling a heightened sensitivity to our Catholic students' experience, and certainly our Muslim students' experience, of course.
What I'm hearing is we need to take students to the Holy Land to experience what we did as faculty and staff.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. This is the perfect kind of Georgetown experience. It's unique to us because we have so much groundwork already laid on the campus. How do we move that to a deeper level with our students? It was so positive with the faculty. It gives us a lot of hope then to do that with our students.
The best in I've read copious material on the power and impact of immersive experiences, right? And I know that I experienced it myself. We've been doing this work together for years, but somehow being together in that context, in that space for that amount of time, with all its challenges and joys, it accelerated all the good work that we're able to do, I feel. And when students are here, they're working hard. They're working hard on their schoolwork and on their internships, and they're trying to be, the head of the plays and the sports, and they care about these issues. Mm-hmm. But to give them an opportunity to really delve in, I think will
and do it together.
And do it together,
as opposed to in separate ways, which I think is what we end up doing, right? Oh, absolutely. When I got back, the first thing that I was talking to some Jewish students who they knew we were going, and they're like, "How was it, Father? How was it? Did you love Jerusalem?" I said, "Yeah, I love Jerusalem." There really was a sense that they were excited about us going.
Oh, yeah.
Which was wonderful. Was there one experience that just, if you could share with us, was there one among many? But what's that one experience that just like, whoa, this was a powerful experience of faith, of life, of Georgetown that kind of all came together? And I know there were a lot of good ones.
It's hard to pick one.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. We do this all the time. I'm going to do two, but I'll do them quick.
Sure.
I'll do them quick. Well, the first was seeing Yaya's home, where he grew up, the lemon tree in his backyard, the spot where he was born in his home, the spot where some really difficult things happened in his life because of the situation there. That was profound for me after knowing you all these years to really see your life was transformative and just so moving. And then the other piece was, I would say, walking the Stations of the Cross and being very aware of particularly a young Catholic woman on the trip, and how profound this experience was for her. And being able to sort of feeling like I wanted to just hold that for her. And in that holding, it opened me to have powerful experience of my own, both of holding her experience, but of learning from you. And it opened me to a deeper level of understanding of, I believe, where you're coming from, and that's changed me.
Wow, that's great. Thank you.
You know, being able to share the copy of the Bible, the Arabic Bible, with my colleagues at my home, that the first book I ever read on comparative religions was the Bible, the Arabic one, back in the 70s. And to carry it for the first time since then, and share it with my colleagues was very, very powerful experience. And the other moment when we together were at the well of Jacob in Nablus, and remembering that Jacob was here and Joseph was here, and Jesus walked and spoke with the Samaritan woman not far from here, was a very powerful experience.
I love Jacob's Well too. I thought that was great. I think for me, the most profound experience was almost the kind of spiritual commotion inside of me in Hebron. Getting to walk through Hebron, meeting with a Jewish rabbi, then meeting with a Palestinian activist, seeing the two sides of the tombs of the patriarchs, and seeing how trying to make that work. That was probably the most profound, I'm in another space, I'm in another world. But I think the other part was actually, I loved going to the Shabbat, and I loved going to your home. I thought that was just, you were like this Pied Piper with all these kids following you around, and all of us were kind of following them around. Like I said, it was just such a, talking about humanizing. It was. I know how to sing a few songs. Well, if not the Hebrew, at least, and then getting to meet so many wonderful people at your home.
No, Father Mark, I have to, being with you, watching you leading the mass service at the Sea of Galilee,
That was beautiful.
Was an amazing experience.
Beautiful.
To have Jews and Muslims and Christians pray together at the Sea of Galilee in that mass service was powerful.
That was definitely a highlight from the Catholic side. Although the Stations of the Cross were moving for even me, it was way, there's the spirit I think was much bigger than and greater than me working on that, because I was so moved and edified. I think maybe that's how we end it. He says, if this is really about being edified by the performance of faith in others.
And seeing it reflected back. Having our group at a Shabbat dinner in Jerusalem in a modern Orthodox home, and hearing people engage and reflect and try their Hebrew out. It was so affirming to see one another really, really taking each other seriously and supporting each other's religious experience. It was profound.
Well, thank you very much for talking with us today. Hopefully, we can be able to continue to do this at Georgetown. And I think you're right, Yahya. We have to bring our students from the different faith traditions together to do this kind of experience.